What if Cersei Lannister had married Rhaegar Targaryen instead of her union with Robert Baratheon? Let's explore the profound consequences of this alternate reality in the Seven Kingdoms. King Aerys II. Targaryen, the Mad King, stared intently at the proposal presented by Tywin Lannister. For a moment he wondered if his old friend Tywin was jesting. After all, Cersei Lannister, with her beauty and position, was a perfect match for Rhaegar Targaryen in many ways. However, the key issue lay in one simple truth. Rhaegar was a dragon, heir to the Targaryen dynasty, while Tywin Lannister, no matter how powerful, was but a servant to the throne. Aerys knew this well, and yet as much as he hated to admit it, Tywin's proposal made sense. With a long, drawn-out breath, Aerys lifted his head and nodded slowly. "Very well, Lord Tywin. Your points are strong. I'll consider this proposal." Tywin, sensing victory, left the room with a deep sense of satisfaction, knowing the king's words meant that the marriage between Rhaegar and Cersei would soon be arranged. The following weeks were a whirlwind of preparations for the royal wedding. While Cersei was overjoyed at the prospect of marrying the silver-haired prince, Rhaegar's reaction was far colder. His expression remained indifferent when informed, and though he nodded his thanks, it was clear he had no emotional attachment to this union. To Rhaegar, this marriage was simply a political maneuver, necessary for securing the Targaryen bloodline. The day of the wedding arrived and the streets of King's Landing were filled with excitement as lords and ladies from across the Seven Kingdoms gathered to witness the union of these two powerful houses. Cersei, radiant in her white gown, was the image of a young queen, vibrant and hopeful. Yet as she walked beside Rhaegar, her excitement was tempered by the coldness she sensed emanating from him. He smiled occasionally, but it was a smile that barely touched his eyes. That night, as the newlyweds settled into their marriage bed, Cersei planted a soft kiss on Rhaegar's cheek. "I've dreamed of this day since I was a little girl," she whispered. "Really?" Rhaegar replied, his voice flat. "Why is that? I've heard of you. Your silver hair, your reputation. Maidens across the realm dream of marrying you," Cersei said, trying to ignite some spark of affection. "Perhaps," Rhaegar replied, his thoughts elsewhere. "But it seems rather odd to wish for a stranger to be your wife." Cersei smiled. Though her heart felt heavy, she was determined to make this marriage work. In the coming days, she threw herself into her role as Rhaegar's wife. She agreed with his proposals, attended him in court, and did everything in her power to win his favor. But no matter what she did, Rhaegar remained distant, his affections never truly engaging with her. Meanwhile, Cersei's brother, Jaime Lannister, could see his sister's frustration. "You waste your time trying to reach Rhaegar like that," Jaime warned. "He lives in his own world, consumed by his thoughts. He doesn't want to burden you with them." But Cersei would not give up. "I am his wife," she retorted. "If he has concerns, they should be shared with me." Despite Jaime's warnings, Cersei remained resolute. She continued to seek Rhaegar's attention, trying everything she could to get him to open up to her. Her heart, however, remained torn between her desire for her husband's affection and the attraction she still felt for her brother, Jaime. In the shadows of the Red Keep, their old relationship continued to smolder, fueling Cersei's confusion and inner conflict. One day, Rhaegar finally relented and admitted that the purpose of their marriage was solely to ensure the survival of the Targaryen bloodline. Cersei, though slightly disheartened, agreed. But when she soon found herself pregnant, the baby born with hair as golden as the sun and eyes as green as the sea, things began to take a turn. Many whispered that the child, Aegon, looked more Lannister than Targaryen, raising suspicions in Rhaegar's mind. Rhaegar, ever the intellectual, became more watchful. The doubts about his son grew, and he started paying closer attention to Cersei. The distant prince, who once seemed indifferent to his wife, now hovered around her, his every move scrutinizing. Cersei, unsure of his intentions, found herself unnerved by his sudden interest. But when Rhaegar spoke to her about their marriage and his thoughts on the prophecy of the prince who was promised, Cersei realized that she might be trapped in a marriage that was more about political necessity than love. The distance between them grew, but in Rhaegar's pursuit of the prophecy, Cersei began to see a flicker of something she had longed for, attention, if not affection. As Cersei settled into her role as the wife of Rhaegar Targaryen, the weight of her marriage began to feel more like a political prison than a union of love. Rhaegar, distant and absorbed in his prophecies, continued to turn inward, leaving Cersei to fend for herself in a cold, lonely palace. Despite her best efforts to charm him, Rhaegar remained indifferent, his mind consumed by visions of the future and the role he had to play in it. This emotional distance was something Cersei could not easily accept, and the deeper she fell into her role as queen, the more frustrated she became. Rhaegar's obsession with the prophecy of the prince that was promised took precedence over anything else, even their marriage. Cersei had once hoped that their shared efforts to secure the Targaryen bloodline would bring them closer, but instead, she felt more isolated with each passing day. She would spend her nights in her chambers, looking at the twins, who had inherited their father's silver hair and Targaryen features. Yet her mind would often wander to Aegon, her firstborn. Though the child had Lannister gold in his hair and green eyes, something in Rhaegar's gaze told her that he did not fully believe Aegon was his son. Cersei knew the stakes were high. She had to produce a Targaryen heir, one who could inherit the Iron Throne. Yet her relationship with Rhaegar remained strained, with his detachment serving as a constant reminder that this was a marriage of duty, not desire. At times, it felt as though Rhaegar saw her not as a queen or a partner, but merely as a vessel to secure the future of his house. Meanwhile, the court buzzed with whispers about the distance between the royal couple. It was not lost on the lords and ladies of the court that Rhaegar and Cersei seemed more like strangers than husband and wife. The rumors grew, and soon, the court had a new subject of gossip: Cersei's relationship with her twin brother, Jaime Lannister. Despite the political ties binding the Lannisters to the Targaryens, the closeness between Cersei and Jaime remained undeniable, and their bond was the subject of increasing scrutiny. Varys, ever the spy, took note of the growing tensions between Cersei and Rhaegar. He watched with interest as Cersei spent more time with Jaime, often seeking his counsel and comfort when her husband was too preoccupied with his books and prophecies. Varys, ever the master of whispers, began to subtly plant seeds of doubt in Rhaegar's mind, suggesting that perhaps Cersei's affections were not entirely with her husband. Cersei, meanwhile, tried to maintain a sense of control over her emotions. She would visit Rhaegar in his chambers, attempting to engage him in conversation, but he was always distant, lost in thoughts of the future and the prophecy that haunted him. In those moments, Cersei would feel the weight of her loneliness more acutely, and she began to question the decisions that had led her here. One day, Rhaegar finally confessed the truth to her. "This marriage," he said softly, his voice devoid of emotion, "is not one born of love, Cersei. It is a means to an end. We must secure the Targaryen bloodline for the future of the realm." Cersei's heart sank at his words, but she had known this truth for a long time. The marriage was never meant to be a union of love. It was about securing power, maintaining control over the Iron Throne, and ensuring the survival of House Targaryen. Rhaegar's distant nature had always been a reflection of his sense of duty, not his feelings toward her. Yet in that moment, Cersei realized the depth of her own feelings for him. Despite everything, she had fallen in love with the prince, who had never truly loved her in return. She could not ignore her feelings. She was not some frail maiden who could accept a life of cold indifference. No, she was Cersei Lannister, daughter of Tywin Lannister, the Lioness of the Rock. She would not be ignored. Yet, no matter how much she tried to make Rhaegar see her, his eyes remained fixed on the future, on the prophecy of the prince that was promised, and on his duty to the realm. Soon, Cersei's frustration with her marriage took a darker turn. She had always been ambitious, driven by a need for power and control, and she began to see Rhaegar not as a husband, but as a means to an end. She played the role of the perfect wife, but deep inside, Her heart ached with a longing for something more. She dreamed of the life she had once imagined, of being loved by her husband, of ruling alongside him. But that dream seemed increasingly out of reach. As Cersei continued to play the role of the dutiful wife, her relationship with Jaime grew more complicated. Their secret meetings became more frequent, their conversations more intimate, and their connection more undeniable. Though Cersei still longed for Rhaegar's affection, she could not deny the passion that simmered between her and Jaime. Their bond was a dangerous one, but it was also the one thing in her life that gave her the sense of control she craved. Jaime, ever the loyal brother, tried to dissuade Cersei from continuing down this path. "You waste your time trying to win his heart, Cersei," he said one night, his voice heavy with concern. "Rhaegar is not a man you can sway. He has his own destiny to fulfill, and you are nothing more than a pawn in his game." But Cersei would not listen. "I am not a pawn, Jaime. I am a queen. I am the mother of his children, and I will make him see me, even if I have to burn the world to get his attention." The more Cersei and Jaime's relationship deepened, the more the tension in King's Landing grew. The court was rife with rumors, and Varys, ever watchful, made sure that Rhaegar was aware of the whispers surrounding his wife and her brother. Though Rhaegar had long suspected that something was amiss, he remained passive, unwilling to confront the truth. However, the moment of reckoning came when Cersei gave birth to her first child. Aegon, a child with Lannister gold in his hair and Targaryen blood in his veins. Rhaegar, despite his detachment, could not help but feel a pang of suspicion when he looked at the child. The boy's eyes, so green and bright, were a reminder of Cersei's true loyalties, and Rhaegar could not ignore the possibility that Aegon might not be his son. As the days passed, Rhaegar's suspicions grew, and his behavior toward Cersei became more scrutinizing. He would watch her closely, his cold gaze always on her, never fully trusting her. And yet, the more he watched, the more Cersei felt his presence. He was no longer the distant prince she had once known. His attention was now focused entirely on her, and though she had longed for this attention, she now found it suffocating. Cersei, in turn, began to play the game with more skill. She would act as the perfect wife, always by Rhaegar's side in public. But secretly she continued to visit Jaime whenever her husband was away. She would smile and nod in court, but in the privacy of her chambers, she would seek comfort in the arms of her brother. Yet the constant tension weighed heavily on Cersei. She was no longer the queen who commanded respect and admiration. She was a woman trapped in a marriage of duty, playing the role of the perfect wife while her heart ached for something more. And though she had once believed that Rhaegar would be the one to fulfill her dreams, she now realized that the true power lay in her own hands. She had made her choices, and she would live with them. But as the game of power and passion continued, Cersei knew that the consequences of those choices would reverberate throughout the Seven Kingdoms for years to come.